I was in great terror when the fire killed the sky, but at least there was light then. When the cold finally smothered the great blaze, it killed the stars and light altogether. Welcome back, listeners, to the Nowhere Press. It's a cold, bitter day here in Nowhere. The sun is looking down at all of us with a fragile smile. Some of us just feel lost in the swallowing bright. So keep yourselves warm, bundle up, and try not to get lost out there in the wide, wide world of nowhere. Goodness knows it would just love to whisk you away. I have been given a message to read to you listeners. Well, some of you, anyway. The following message is for the ears of the high citizens of Nowhere only, and you are advised to listen at your own risk. We, the Friends, would like to kindly call to action the Viridian Candles, the Luxury Anathema, and the Ragged Courtiers. The first of you are to meet with the man in the mirror. From him you will receive your targets. The second of you are to collect together in Station C and await further instructions. The last of you called to action are to enact a Code 21 edict upon the third members of List A, B, and E, and the fourth members of List C and O. And to all agents of the Severed listening in, congratulations on your little insurrection on Wednesday. This particular message has been modified with an info hazard kill agent, so goodbye, I guess. Well, now that that's out of the way, we have a few announcements of our own. First, we would like to thank all of you kind listeners for your words of concern for our man in the booth, Michael. I would like to assure all of you that he is perfectly fine. He is currently at the Hospital of Voiceless Saints in stable condition after being treated for a concussion and mild hemorrhaging. Wishing you a speedy recovery, Michael. Additionally, the owners of the new bookstore in town, The Looking Glass, wanted us to let you all good people of Nowhere know that they will be opening a small cafe within The Looking Glass so that their customers can enjoy some refreshments with their literature. Oh, and that everything will be half off for the first week. I myself may stop in for a glass of sherry and sit for a spell to read, listeners. I hope to see you there. Excellent. Moving right on. Listeners, today's short was sent to us anonymously. In fact, it was left by the door of the station early this morning, and I almost missed it. Were it not for my co-worker, Michelle, who pointed it out to me. Thank you, Michelle. The short is written on old parchment and handwritten. It is titled, If I End This Ride Alone. If I end this ride alone, I don't want to disappear, to never have touched or been felt or heard. When I end this ride, I wish to be a shadow, a little flicker in the candle of those I've touched, a little haze in the brightness that passes, a nothing gloomy on the bright stone quilt of adjacent lives, a touch of blue and pink in an otherwise orange and gold sunset. When I end this ride alone, I hope all the words I've spoken, written, spat, sworn, or whispered will maybe have left a mark on the basalt surface of time. But it won't. Not for long. I know I won't end this ride alone. All the lights in the sky watch me and wait holding their breath. Like the minute I fall, they'll tear the sky down to catch me. But more likely than not, my fall will slam into someone else on their ride, colliding and twisting and twirling like some sick dance, and there will be fire and screeching steel and the sudden final crash of thunderous silence. But if I end this ride alone, let it be the shimmer of sound in the dark, not a howl of careless volume, a whisper that for once made someone listen, and when it is done, maybe they stayed and thought in the quiet that I left. Well, wherever you ended up, if you are listening, let us all hope you received what you had been wanting. Moving on to traffic and weather. I've been informed by local traffic authorities that there has been an accident at the intersection of Main and Hornet Street. No one has been seriously hurt, but it has slowed traffic in that area quite a bit, so best to avoid it, if you have anywhere to be in a hurry. Additionally, any traffic across the Baraxian Sea is still grounded, and although authorities are still resistant to informing anyone as to why, we did attempt to reach out to one of our good friends, Air Traffic Controller Warren Samuels, but he wouldn't answer any calls, and according to our board operator Lindsay, one of his friends, he hasn't been heard from in several days. Oh. Thank you. Oh. Listeners, I'm very sorry to have to pass this on to you, but we are expecting several heavy showers of ashen rain. That gray powder that flurries down around us like snow and fills the air with that thick, impenetrable dust. And the days that follow, when those few unlucky get caught alone in the haze, wandering our little city, vanish, or more likely, taken. So stock up on goods to keep you for the next few days, listeners, and huddle together around your radios. Keep the doors and windows locked, and do not leave your homes unless absolutely necessary. I would hate for any of you to go missing. Today, dearest listeners, I have been asked additionally to draw a tarot card for Nowhere, and as of course I am here to serve her and her people, I will gladly lend my talents to you all. Patrick, thank you. Cut this. Thank you. Our card for this draw is the Five of Cups. Drawn upright, I'm afraid, listeners. We all know what this means. But for those who don't know, allow me to explain. A cloaked figure looks on towards 3 spilled cups. 2 stand upright still. It is a card of loss, of frustration, of legacies left to us, and success, but only after struggle. Hold loved ones close. Nowhere. Breathe calmly and try as best we can to persevere. There will be hardships to come, and some of us may be lost. But do not despair, listeners. No one stays lost forever. And when we pass through this long night, we shall be better for it. Isn't it strange, listeners? Not long ago, the Forsaken Parliament banned the use of civilian divination, and private ownership of a complete tarot was, of course, only for those with a Class 5 license. If you want my opinion, I'm glad that the Forsaken Parliament repealed the ban, and of course, It is much easier to obtain a Class 3 license. Even Patrick has one. But here I go rambling again. We have plenty more show to go. In fact, we've arrived at our feature segment. Today's submission has been sent to us from T. Jimenez. It is titled, The Stranger on the Docks. Summer, mid-July, on a day that should have belonged to autumn. A day on which one could wear a blazer or jacket without being over-encumbered with heat. On this day, I, a self-proclaimed ill-minded and shy gentleman, and my beloved sister, who was soon to be off to university, were spending the cool day at a local fishing town. We seldom came to this tourist trap, but today we'd come to see a relative off on the ferry. We'd finished our luncheon at a popular restaurant when the ferry had arrived, and after a rushed farewell, me and my sister, or should I say my sister and I, walked along the pier to a lonesome spot on the railing. I was doing my best to try and make her laugh, as she was having second thoughts on going away for her schooling. I stood several inches above her, and that was when I saw him, the stranger. Now, being an introvert myself, I rarely look upon others with any form of curiosity, or criticism for that matter. However, this man was different. He walked with a certain aloofness, usually relegated to those of high society or noble standing, a sentiment not met by his unruly grey suit. His dusty evening shoes, weathered with odysseys, clacked loudly on the old stone pavement as he passed us. He wore a pair of low-hanging glasses, only slightly covering up his deep, blue eyes. Eyes that had seen lands east of east and sights that would scar the minds of lesser folk. His long, graying hair done up in a ponytail, covered by a even dirtier brown fedora. His furrowed brow held in a contented expression, and his withered hands placed deeply into his pockets. He had the quality of dignity unseen on many faces. However, he was not lacking the field of a past of hard labor and troubles he would not soon forget. And at that moment, I had a strange desire to converse with this character, to ask him of his life and the ways he had made in the world. I was drawn to him. I stepped away from my sister, told her that I would return soon. She gave me a shrug, and I slipped away. I had to speak to this man. Some overwhelming sensation took me, and I am ashamed to say I pursued him through the streets, between market stall-filled alleys and the small fish market. I followed him until he came to rest at a pier secluded from the rest of the little hamlet. He sat on a bench, resting his arm upon the back as if around a close friend, and there he simply watched the sea. I had nothing planned, nothing to say, but gathering up my courage, I walked to the bench and asked, in as calm a voice as I could muster, "Mind if I join you?" What followed I could never have predicted. You followed me from the ferry for some time. If I had been looking for solitude, I would have stopped you earlier, and yet I did not. It's not at all, lad. Sit down. It's a fine sea to gaze at, and no reason to do it alone. I was shocked. I thought I had been fairly discreet in my pursuit, but his statement was not what caught me off guard. No, it was his voice. A rich oaky tone, deep as darkness, sweet like honey, and seasoned with a touch of a northern accent. A bit more sheepishly I took my seat and apologized. "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I just thought you looked like an acquaintance of mine, and I had to be—" "No need to lie, lad," he cut me off. "'Twas curiosity. Nothing more, nothing less. And there's no need to save face in the absence of the public." I sat in silence, looking out into the sea, unsure of what to say for some time. Eventually it came to me. The one question which I hadn't realized I wanted to ask. "Sir, who are you?" The man chuckled softly with a glinting smile, a bass rumble from deep in his chest. "Forward, lad. But I think it would only be fair to ask, who are you?" I paused. I'd never considered this before. I had considered, of course, who I was, but that would be in relation to friends, colleagues, family, but never to a stranger. Fair enough, I suppose, but I am no one, sir. I am a bachelor, and an unemployed one at that. He glanced at me, then back to the sea, nodding, as if everything I had said was insightful in some way. "Oh, come now. You must think there's more to you than that, lad, don't you?" I paused, thinking what might be of note about me to this man. This man, who, at least in my eye, had his shoes step on every corner of this world. "I'm a writer, I suppose. I tend to enjoy dabbling in the written word, and I hope one day to be published." At this he sat up, drawing himself to full height, and he brought his hands together, a glint in his eye. "A wordsmith. Now, that is a fine occupation. Tell me, lad, what great tales have you told? What stories have you woven?" I blushed. I had not written anything for quite some time, and as I explained this to him, he thought, scratched his beard, and smiled. "Well, it's not as if stories spoil. Come now, spin me a yarn." He was very persistent, and eventually I relented. I began to recount a story I had written, nothing more than a sort of fairy tale I had invented, about a wolf, a young man, and his lady love, about how a competition had arose between them, and through wit, as opposed to brawn, the young man had won. Nothing of note, or so I had thought, but the stranger listened intently, and as he listened I grew more bold, and I told him another, and another. I felt sure of myself and my words in front of this man, not as if to impress him, but as if the stories I told were my own adventures into the world. And as he listened and laughed and thought, I grew to feel as though we were equals, that we had seen those lands east of east together, that the stories I told were my own adventures into the world, just as he had his, that we had fought battles across sea and earth and struggled under the harshest desert sun together. When at last my stories were spent, I realized I had been standing, and that I had gathered a small crowd. So enraptured was I in telling my craft to the stranger that I did not notice the others congregating around the bench to listen to my tales of adventure and wonder. And before I had a chance to apologize for my ramblings, they broke out into a small applause. Some even tossed a few coins my way. My sheepishness returned, and I timidly thanked the listeners. Once they had finished with their questions of where they could read my work and who I was, I looked for my companion, the stranger. I asked around if any had seen the man. Most had not, but a few had. They said he left as the last of them joined the crowd, turned into the road, and in the thunderous clamor of automobiles and yelling fishermen, he was gone. And to this day, I believe I will never see that man again, and I look back on it with strange regret. For all the words spent with the stranger, I never did hear his story. Thank you very much for your submission, T. It makes me think, how many people do we meet that never have their story told, or never get their opportunity to say it? Again, listeners, please feel free to send in your submissions. I very much enjoy sharing them. Oh, having something passed to me now. Ah, excellent. We've received another entry to the advice column. Today's question comes from James S. from the Nowhere Hollow Quarter. He asks, Dear Mr. Astarte, I've been a long-time listener of the show ever since I arrived here in Nowhere, but I've never felt the need to reach out until now. I find myself in a bit of a predicament. Recently, I awoke in my bed and was accompanied by a redhead. I'm not sure where she came from, whether she followed me home from the Torntejo, or maybe I invited her in after too many drinks. I'm not sure. Regardless, as I was going to go to the proper authorities concerning redheads, she stirred. I had, of course, as is recommended to any civilian untrained in dealing with such wonderful creatures. But unlike what we have been told, she did not hunt me down by the scent of my fear or tear me limb from limb, and my soul has not been stolen. I even went to the Spirit Society to make sure. No, nothing of the sort happened. No, she made breakfast for both of us. If it was some sort of lore, it worked. I broke fast with a redhead and lived. Mr. Astarte, the redhead has been living with me for the last week, and I am terrified as to what I should do. Ensorcelled by fear. James S. Oh, James, you poor, poor fool. It's too late for you. Your only hope now is to set your home ablaze and pray that the beast does not escape the inferno. Or risk going to the proper authorities now and beg for the mercy of the Bureau of Extermination. Either way, good luck. And do all you listeners remember, though the redhead's song be tender, you'll end as nothing more than embers. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a lovely time reading your submissions and lending my aid wherever I can. Hopefully none of you have gone missing or have gotten lost somewhere along the way. And if you have been lost, I hope for your safe recovery and that you once again find your way home, wherever that may be. I wish you a safe night in your homes around the radio. As always, I've been your host, Mr. Astarte, and even in the dust of the ashen rain, listeners, remember, someone, somewhere, in nowhere, is listening. Good night.